Well, good evening, everybody out there in YouTube land. You may notice that you can't see us yet, and that's on purpose because I don't know how many of you guys are aware of what we've been dealing with for the last couple of days. And so I wanted to leave the thumbnail up for just a minute to prepare you for what you are about to see. If you've ever seen any of the Frankenstein movies, that might kind of set the stage for what you're about to be looking at. My face has never been real pretty, but
I think it's pretty.
Well, thank you.
I still think it's pretty.
It's been a little rearranged, and that's going to be the topic of our discussion tonight. Our Anatolian Shepherd dog attacked me a couple of days ago, and so I've had multiple hundreds of stitches. I'll point out some things about my wounds when we turn on the camera, but I want you to brace yourself because if you've got a problem with kind of slight disfigurement, things like that, I want you can turn away or do whatever you're about to do. But all right, so having said that, fair warning, right? So I'm gonna count down to 3 and I'm gonna transition to the camera.
How do I get my chat up?
It's down here.
Oh.
Sorry, gotta do that. And
He's
then,
helping me now, of course, y'all.
I don't know, Patty.
It's in my old iPad.
It's not signed in for me either. We'll work on that in a minute. All right, so we all clear that you're going to be not looking at the normal looking me when I change cameras. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to count down for 3. This is your warning. 3, 2, 1. Y'all, that is so embarrassing.
He's on very strong pain meds right now.
Yeah,
and he did give a warning.
That's awful because
Sorry.
Of all the times for me to make that stupid mistake, I had given everybody a long warning that you were about to see something that looks like my face, and you didn't hear any of it. I am so sorry. I hope I didn't shock anybody. Golly, please forgive me for that. Basically, the bottom line is, and I'll get into the details of what transpired, but our Duke attacked me a couple of days ago, and I thought I was going to die. And my nose was split, and the right half of my nose was down here on my upper lip. My nose is broken here. My right jaw, lower mandible is fractured. I thought my right ear had been removed. In fact, at one point, once it was over and we were, I don't remember where, but at some point afterwards, I asked Corey to see if he could find my ear. And, it later occurred to me that's just not something a son should have to hear from his daddy.
I'm going to tell you, everybody heard the warning. The audio went whenever our faces came on. So
Oh, good.
everybody
Oh,
got the
good.
warning.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for clarifying. I know why that happened then. That makes sense. So, I guess I'll just start at the top and describe what transpired. What day was it? It was the day before
It
yesterday.
was Friday. Friday
Yeah, it
morning,
was
about
Friday.
11:20.
Yeah. So,
Can I have a piece of candy?
I had been out.
Oh, wait, let me tell one thing. We have guests in our studio today.
Yeah.
The greatest neighbors in the world are actually here.
Yeah. I got to turn the camera around. Y'all, everybody say hey to Tommy and Marilyn.
Look, I don't even have makeup on Marilyn. You got all makeup.
Hey, how y'all doing?
It's Tommy and Marilyn.
Everybody probably thinks they know you already because we talk about you all the time. Well, not all the time, and it's mostly good. But,
You gotta watch YouTube to find out what we say.
For a lot of you, you're not familiar with the layout of our place. What I'm about to describe will make sense to Jared, at least, to Jared Stanley from J&J, because he's been here. Most of our animals are in one area by our barn and all that, but we've got 2 cows and 3 pigs over in front of Patti's mama's house, which is basically on the other side of our curtilage area, the place that we mow and all that. And so I had done all the animals by the barn, and I put some feed in the buckets in the Polaris and drove them over to Patti's mama's house to take care of those animals. And one of the pigs over in that area had just had a litter of piglets, small litter, like 4 piglets, a day earlier. So I guess Thursday, right?
Or Tuesday or Wednesday, really.
I don't know. It was right before it got cold.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving over there, and I noticed that Duke had a piglet. And I immediately knew what happened. The piglet had wandered, a day old or 2 old piglet had wandered away, and he had it, and it was still alive. And
Is the pig all right?
so I parked the Polaris and left it running. Remember that's key, because there's so many times throughout this event where the hand of God is so obvious. There are so many things that had to happen in order for me to survive, and they all happened. There are so many things that could have gone the other way that would have resulted in me being blind, without ears, or dead, and none of those happened.
And you're seeing the redness under his eyes and stuff. His eyes were not affected.
Yeah.
Praise
That the bruising and stuff is from the broken nose. They told me I could expect that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I'm not wearing a nose ring or an earring. There's a little piece of plastic tubing that's in my nose. It looks like a little small piece of pipe with a flange on it, and there's a name for it. Some of you may know what it is, but basically it's like a stent. I asked them, I said, "Oh, you're talking about like a stent?" And they said, "Yeah." And it serves 2 purposes. The secondary purpose is to allow me to breathe right now through that nostril, which is good, because Patti will tell you, I'm fanatic about being able to breathe through my nose. It would drive me nuts.
I was thinking about that because, how it was going to be for him. But
Yeah.
I was glad to see that. I knew he would be glad to have that.
Yeah.
I would not be.
Well, it really don't bother me. I don't, it wasn't pleasant him sticking it in there, but it don't bother me. But the primary purpose of it is so that as the tissue in my nose heals and reforms, that it keeps an opening there. Because without that there, it would just grow back together and close it up. And so the weirdest thing about it is, and I'm not going to try to get close enough to the camera, you probably couldn't see it, probably wouldn't want to.
Yeah, not everybody wants to see it. So.
But it's actually stitched into my nostril in a couple of spots to hold it in place.
Your nasal trumpet, that is.
Nasal trumpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have quite a few people telling you.
I hadn't tried that. Maybe I could start a band.
No. Don't do that.
So back to the story. So I noticed Duke had that piglet. I left the Polaris running. I didn't expect to be there, but just a second, you know. This has happened, you know, once or twice where I found Duke with a dead piglet that has gotten out somewhere. And, you know, he gets possessive of that. And I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. Or I want to make sure I don't leave any wrong impressions. I mean, y'all heard me talk about my dog. Y'all have seen him on video. And I love that dog. And I believe he loved me. He would climb up in my lap, that big joker. He would walk right next to me all the time where he was touching me, where I could lay my hand on his head. We would sit down on the deck together, and you know, I've laid out in the yard with him. You know, we've wrestled and lightly.
Not much.
Yeah,
But
not
we
much,
didn't want to do
but-
that with that big of a dog.
Yeah,
Trying to do that.
I ain't. I'm too old to do that. Yeah, we didn't want to do it so much that. But you know, occasionally a dog, like when it's cold, they'll get in a real frisky and playful mood, and so in the previous times where I've needed to remove him from a pig, I've scolded him firmly, not abusively or angrily, but firmly. Usually, I describe it as my police command voice, you know, where I sternly tell him no, and then coax him away, and get his the attention diverted elsewhere, and then once he's kind of forgotten or not thinking about the piglet anymore, then it's safe to go get it. And we've done that on a number of occasions.
Yeah,
couple.
We've been remembering lots of different occasions where we've had to divert his attention and thinking, glad it didn't happen then. You know.
Yeah, and because there's some signs I'm going to tell you about that I've learned since this incident, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I learned some of the things that there were signs that I grossly misinterpreted. And so back to the current incident. So I did as I've normally done. I was about 10 feet away from him, and I scolded him firmly, "No, Duke," and then "Come here, man, come here, buddy, and he turned and started coming like he normally did, and he was wagging his tail. Remember that. That's key. He had a little rumbling, he wasn't snarling at me. There was a little growl. And I've always only thought that a wagging tail meant I'm happy. It turns out that's not the case. That a tail wag usually involves body movement. You see me moving, you can't see my fanny, but my fanny is going back and forth too. Usually a dog that's wagging his tail to exhibit happiness or satisfaction or whatever, their body wags as well. But when a dog is stiffer and the body isn't wagging and that tail is just going back and forth independent of the body, that could mean I'm about to attack you.
I never knew that. I never heard that.
That'd be good information to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And
if their whole body's not wagging at you, you need to be careful.
So, even in these prior incidents, even though there were few, the same thing. He was wagging his tail in the same manner he did the other day. I made an incorrect assumption about that wagging tail, and I also made an incorrect connection with the previous incidents. He did this before, that worked out fine. He's doing this now, it's going to work out fine today. Then I made, aside from misinterpreting what I was seeing, and that's my fault. It was my responsibility to know as best as I could what my dog was communicating to me. I owed him that, and I didn't. But I'm not gonna beat that dead horse. So he started coming to me, and the first crucial mistake I made right then on the scene was I didn't get him far enough away from that piglet. we only got about 5 or 6 more feet. So say 15 to 20 feet or so. I haven't measured it. Haven't measured the crime scene.
Yeah. I think it was more than 10 feet. I think it was more like 15.
Maybe it could have been 15. Well, no. It was 10 feet when I addressed him.
Oh, okay. But
when I called him away, it was more like probably 15 to 20 feet. That wasn't far enough. In the previous incidents, I'd gotten him way away. I'd gotten him to follow me off somewhere completely away from the piglet. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 happened at the almost exact time of an independent factor that I believe, and some others I've talked to, that I believe affected his behavior. And that was, I squatted down in front of him. Now you got to understand, I have been at eye level with Duke 100 times. I have been right down in his face 100 times. I'm not saying to you that that's ever a safe thing to do, especially now with what's happened to me. But I can tell you, he would lick me, or, it was always under circumstances in which he was loving on me and I was loving on him. This circumstance was different. I knew that, and for some stupid reason, I knelt down. I didn't kneel. I squatted down in front of him. And I'm telling you, the moment I did, I thought to myself, what have I done? I thought to myself, I'm in big trouble. I knew it. But there I was. I couldn't undo it. I couldn't turn the clock back and not squat down. I had already squatted down. And almost at the exact same time, I think it was Blue, his puppy,
about 6 months old.
About 6-month-old puppy with the steely blue eyes, came walking up from my left. I can't confirm exactly because it's Blue, not because I don't remember, because I knew I couldn't look away. I was already fully aware of the danger that I was in. And I think, and some others, people with years of experience, think I'm right about this. One of the few things I was right about is that dog coming up, and he came up just because he wanted some of the loving too, but that changed the dynamic further for Duke. Well, I knew at that point 2 things. I knew that I must stand up, but I also knew that the moment I did, it was on. And I was right. I stood up as slowly as I thought I could, without doing so too slowly, if that makes sense. This is what was going through my head. And but I didn't want to do it too rapidly either, because I didn't want him to interpret it as aggression. He probably interpreted it as aggression anyway. He probably interpreted it as me trying to be above him and to exert dominance. I just wanted to get in a position where I could escape if possible. But I knew it was coming, and I was right, because as soon as I stood up, the attack began. I had on thick, heavy insulated gloves. The first bite, he took my left hand. I almost gave it to him in a sense. And then, what happened after that, the majority of the details, I don't remember because it all happened so fast. Tommy asked me earlier, our greatest neighbor in the universe asked me earlier, he said, how long did the fight go on? And I told him a week and a half.
He looked kind of strange when Tommy said that.
But I know you all know what I'm getting at when I say that's what it felt like. It felt like an eternity. If I had to give my best reasonable guess, I'd say 3 minutes. Fully recognizing it could have been 1 minute. It could have been 2. Someone on Facebook was asking me if I had experienced any of a certain list of phenomena that people in the midst of a critical incident experience, like a slowing down of time and things like that. And it wasn't that. So I did not envision, I did not experience a slowdown of time. I did experience a lack of pain. Nothing he did to me hurt at the moment.
It's just amazing.
And I did experience supernatural or superhuman, I guess, endurance at least. If it was either God or just a function of
The way God
adrenaline.
made his body, yeah.
Because I'm not in good shape, y'all. I've been, I've had too many back-to-back sicknesses that my endurance is pitiful. And, but I never got tired. And so, back to the story. So, I never struck him. I knew that wouldn't be helpful. It's not because I'm a pacifist, but I knew that wouldn't do anything but provoke him even more. So I knew my only hope was to get help and to secure him as best I could to limit the damage. So it's all kind of a blur. I think at some point I had him, sort of in a headlock. I don't remember how. I've got bruises here. I've got bruises here. I've got a, well, I don't have to show you, but there's a small wound on my chest right here. I don't remember any of that. I remember, as far as, well, I don't remember any of that contact. This could have been one of his paws as he was trying to back up from me to re-engage. The experts that I've looked at on Facebook, I say experts, I was just grasping for a word. Some of them may in fact be experts. Many of them are just people with decades of experience with various livestock guardian dogs and some with Anatolians in particular. Are puzzled by the fact that he was relentless.
Yeah, because there was no let up.
There was no point at which Patti was saying today, where there's been a couple of times when he's reacted poorly to one of us and then immediately apologized.
He's sorry.
Like immediately, like he's never bitten anybody, but just a quick, and then, oh, it's you, that kind of thing. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I didn't realize it was you, kind of. There was none of that. He was relentless. One of the things that needed to happen for me to survive was I had a big, thick collar on him. I had wanted to train him to walk on a leash once before, and we kind of fooled with it a little bit, and then life got in the way, and I didn't stick with it. But it provided a perfect handle for me to get my hand through here and a firm grip to allow me to try to hold him back. And I was telling Tommy about that earlier, and I said, looking at my face, it looks like I didn't do a very good job of that, holding him back. But I really did do a good job of it, because my face would not be here if I didn't, or if I wasn't at least moderately successful in holding him off. So at this point in the struggle, in the very early stages of the struggle, we were sort of in front of the Polaris over by Patti's mom's. Patti and Corey, I didn't know where Corey was. Corey had worked late the night before, and for all I knew, he was still sleeping in Patti's mom's house. Patti was inside, and so that's probably 50 yards. Tommy, you reckon? About 50 yards from here to where it all happened?
Yeah.
About 50 yards away. And remember, the Polaris is running. So here's one of those things that had to fall into place. I wish I hadn't fallen down. I didn't choose to fall down, but I did fall down. And I knew, that was obviously not good. Ground fighting with a 120, 130, 135 pound dog was on the ground was not going to be good. Not that it was outstanding any other way, but I managed to I had gotten, and I wasn't purposely trying to go anywhere. I was purposely trying to survive. And my feet were just moving to maintain balance. I don't remember why I fell. I don't remember if I tripped over something.
Well, where you were showing me, it's the yard, and then it's a little dip down where there's like kind of like, not really ruts, but it's a sunk in place where our tires go on the driveway, and so it's unlevel.
So unlevel ground, uneven ground is probably what happened.
Yeah. And rocks, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And so I went down, and I went down beyond the Polaris. The reason why it's important is that had I fallen beside the Polaris, it is a guarantee that Patti and Corey would never have heard me, because I don't have the kind of voice that carries a long way, but even if I did, the sound of the running Polaris would have swallowed my voice completely. It would not have come out the other side of that Polaris. So thank God that didn't happen. So anyway, so we're on the ground now, continuing to wrestle. I'm continuing to scream for help. And I've never really felt a sense of utter despair until that day, until that moment, because I got to a point where I thought to myself, they're not coming. They can't hear me. And they're not going to hear me. And I knew, look at me, I knew I was going to die in my own front yard. And my thoughts turned to Patti. My thoughts turned to Patti coming out and discovering the mangled body of her husband in the front yard. And that's a load. That's a load to try to process that, especially when you're still in the midst of battle. Now, I wasn't going to give up. I was going to continue to struggle. But I knew that eventually, if he didn't relent, eventually I would lose the strength necessary to go on. Or I would lose strength momentarily, just long enough for him to get what he needed, to finish me. I don't remember exactly. Along about that time, he got my ear, my right ear, and I thought it was gone. But one of our favorite old song of ours is He's an On-Time God. And I love to hear our dear friend Becky Haley sing that song. And she told me on Facebook she'd come over here and sing it for me anytime I wanted her to after this. But just about the time I had given up hope of being rescued.
Because he was screaming this whole time, right?
Yeah, I was screaming the whole time. Not like constantly, but every few seconds. I mean, because you have to focus your attention on, you can't, people who say they're multitaskers, or nobody can focus on two things at once. You may be very skilled at switching your focus between things at an unbelievably fast rate, but you still can only give all your focus to one thing at a time. And so I could either focus on hollering continually, or I could focus on Duke, and I chose to focus on Duke. But I don't know how many times I hollered. My voice was getting weak.
Yeah.
So at least that many times. And so I'm going to stop there briefly and let Patti pick it up. I'm going to stop at the point where I said I was just about to give up hope of any rescue, which may have meant, I don't know, it's impossible to answer this because it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. It may have meant that I would have stopped yelling. Had I fully despaired of being heard, why yell? So I don't know that, but those are thoughts that come through my mind. So now, here I am outside screaming for my life, and Patti and Corey inside the house, totally unaware. And I'm going to let her pick up the story to give you her perspective, or what was happening from her perspective as that was unfolding, and I'm going to drink a little water.
Corey was up. Tommy didn't realize that. Corey was up. He was in the recliner watching a show on TV, drinking his coffee. And I had been in the nursing to the hospital. Mama had been in there, and we were going to be transferring her to the nursing home. She's just gotten a little weak, just to help her get her strength back, just rehab, and then she'll be back home. But anyway, we needed to bring her lift chair up there, and you know, Corey's without a car, so he uses Tommy's truck, and we needed his strength to help lift the lift chair. Anyway, he at 11:20, Corey informed me that he was leaving for work at 11:45. And we worked out the details that I would just bring him and drop him off because we had to have the truck, blah, blah, blah. We'd drop the truck off back to him later where he could come home later that night. Anyway, I told him, I said, I better go get your daddy where he can back the truck up over at Mama's house where y'all can go ahead and load the lift chair. I said, a man at the nursing home can help him unload it. And that's how I left it with Corey, and I opened the back door. Now, Tommy is more on the front, over at Mama's house, but it would be like towards the front of my trailer, you know, the front side, not the back side. So that's what's amazing that when I opened the door at the same time Corey heard it too. I heard something, and you know, Tommy's yelled before, no, 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 stop, 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 or whatever, when the dogs are doing something bad. And I've actually fussed at him. I told somebody today I fussed at him so bad. I said, don't do that. You scared me. I thought something was wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway, but it wasn't loud like that normally. As it was, something was different. You know, I don't know what exactly I heard. Corey looked out the front window.
I think it was the Holy Spirit, by the way.
Yeah. Corey looked out the front window. I'm not knowing. Corey realizes. I run down the end of the deck and round the corner, and I see Tommy covered with blood. I thought on both knees with Duke, and I knew Duke had attacked Tommy. I knew that.
Hold up for a second, because I forgot. Stop right there, perfect spot, because I forgot to tell you something crucial. I'm armed all the time.
Oh yeah.
With a 40 caliber Glock. At some point earlier in that morning, well, just before I did this, I went over to Mama's. I had to come. I came into the house to use the restroom, and in order to do that, I need to take my weapon out of my holster. I've got a holster that goes inside my belt, and if I don't, when I undo my britches, it's going to fall. You know, so I'm sorry for the, you know, TMI on that, but it's important to the story. So I had taken my gun out, and I did something a little different with it. Tomas wasn't here. Nobody was here at the time, so I laid it on the kitchen table.
No, I mean, our baby's 19, so it's okay.
Yeah, you know? And he knows how to handle weapons, as we'll talk about in a moment. But I've got, you know, normally when I'm going in the bathroom or whatever, I've got a high place that I put my weapon, and maybe if I'd have put it there, I would have realized that I didn't get it on the way out the door. So I was unarmed.
Or maybe Corey wouldn't have found it so quick.
Yeah, that's true. You know, you never know. It may have, I trust God, and it could have been that God gave me forgetfulness to leave that gun, because had I had it with me, it may have fallen out, and, you know, whatever.
Anyway, he had forgotten his gun.
So I had forgotten my gun. All right.
And anyway, I run out, and at that time, Tommy's hollering, "Get the gun! Get the gun! Get the gun!" And so I turned around, and
you said Corey was hollering?
No, I did it first. Tommy was hollering, "Get the gun! Get the gun!"
I don't remember that. I
turned around to come back and get. I don't know if I was coming to get Corey or get the gun. I came to get Corey, and Corey, we crossed. He was running down the deck with the gun, and I'm screaming, "Get the gun!" at this point. And Corey ran out there. Corey saw that Tommy had blood on him and everything. He saw Duke, but he thought Tommy was restraining Duke, and Duke had hurt a pig, and Corey thought he was going out to shoot a little piglet to put it out. An
injured pig.
Yeah, to put it out of its misery. That's what Corey thought. But that's not what it was.
That's not what it was. And so
I'll just tell them where I'm at. I followed back, and I stopped far back at the edge of my car.
Yeah.
And Corey ran to his daddy.
Up by the house. And Corey ran, and I may or may not have said, "Come on," you know. I may or may not have said, "Hurry," or something to let him know I needed him there now. But he ran, And thankfully he's got a long stride and he's pretty quick. So he covered that ground pretty fast. And so I'm on the ground.
On
I
one knee.
think I would have my right knee down on the ground, and so my left foot, up, like down on one knee, and in an active struggle.
Wait, excuse me, let me just say this. Corey remembers, and different people see different things and remember different things. Corey had told me that he thought one of his daddy's legs was actually up under Duke.
Yeah.
And one knee was on the ground.
Yeah, which
One
is
leg
important
straight out.
from his perspective.
You
So when
That's
Corey
what Corey saw.
when Corey got 10 or 15 feet away, I shouted, "Shoot him now!" And immediately Corey was on target and fired 3 shots. Not pow, 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 but it was shoot, assess, shoot, assess, shoot, assess. But it happened quickly. I mean, it wasn't rapid fire, but it was 3 quick shots. And Duke was down.
And it took that one, the last one he might not would have had to do, but definitely he had to do 2, because after the first shot, Duke lunged back at Tommy. After the first shot, I think maybe Tommy's reaction to the gun, or he's off of me, Tommy pushed back, from my perspective, and Corey shot again. Corey shot the first time, Tommy pushed back, Duke came back and bit Tommy again on the arm, from my perspective.
Either between shots or after all the shots were over, and I was going down and to my left.
Yeah, Tommy ended up on the ground.
Fly, our border collie, joined in, and she got this ear and this side of my face, but she didn't stay. I say it was during the shots or after. I'm not sure if it wasn't before. Did y'all see Fly come in?
No, I never saw Fly.
All right, well, then it could have happened. That could have happened before they even came outside. I don't remember. I just don't remember. But at some point, she joined in on the attack. Pack mentality, I don't know. Outside possibility that she was aiming for Duke and missed and got me. I don't think so. But
Far less damage on this side. Of course, she wasn't on him the whole time.
and she only got me once or twice.
Yeah, but
and if
she's
it was
got-
twice, she was aiming for me.
There's 2 places here, and then his ear had to have stitches. I'm not sure. I think there is stitches in here too.
Yeah. If you're not sure, say yeah. Because there's a better chance that there is stitches
Yeah.
than there is that they ain't. So, my 19-year-old son is my hero. He saved my life. Period. End of sentence. My son saved my life. I would have died because there was no stopping him. And it was gratifying later, I don't know, I guess at the hospital when Corey told y'all about the things he remembered about training.
No, that wasn't until we got home from the hospital.
Corey later said that he remembered things that I had trained him. One of those was, in a crisis situation, obey immediately without hesitation and do not ask questions. With my law enforcement background, I remember using, one of the examples I would use was that we'd be eating at a restaurant or something, and I said, "You may hear me whisper to you guys, get under the table now." And I wanted to embed in their minds that, if Dad tells us to do something, I would tell them, for you to say why, could mean the difference between life and death. And Corey said that training actually came to him as this was unfolding. And when I told him to shoot now, he shot now.
He obeyed his daddy.
Immediately and without hesitation.
And see, that's what scares me. I can shoot a gun. I don't like guns,
Corey
I
was,
can shoot a gun. I'm so scared I would have hesitated. Even for a minute. That would have been a long minute. But Corey didn't hesitate.
yeah,
Tommy said, shoot him. I heard Tommy say, shoot him. And Corey said, pow, pow, pow.
Some of you may have forgotten or might not be thinking about the predicament I was in and may be wondering, why would he hesitate? It's because, as he told his mom later and later told me, he was afraid he was going to hit me. But he listened to me, and he performed like a professional with ice water in his veins. The other thing that he said he remembered was, and I don't know if this was as much of a training for him or for our kids as it was just hearing me talk about police shootings and things of that nature. And I've said over and over again, that you shoot until the threat is neutralized. You shoot until the threat stops. It's not like on TV with one-shot Barnaby Jones. Barnaby Jones have a little .38 revolver and shoot somebody running away from 100 yards with one shot and drop them. In real life, it often doesn't work that way. And if you shoot once and think you've done it, you could die. And Corey said he remembered that, so he didn't just shoot once and then lower his weapon and think it was over. He shot until the threat was neutralized. Brilliantly. And his command, my 19-year-old son's command of the situation didn't end there. Because as soon as it was apparent that the threat was eliminated, Corey came and grabbed me by the arm and helped me up to my feet.
I didn't hear.
And as we got up, he said, "Come on, we have to go now." And I don't remember if it was immediately or if we took a couple of steps. And he turned and hollered at his mom, hollered at Patti, "Get your keys. We have to go." So we got to...
Sorry.
Yeah, the dogs are having choir practice
We still
behind
have
us
a
here.
bunch of
Yeah. So Patti ran in and got her keys. And Corey helped me get in her brand new blood-free car. It's her formerly blood-free car now. I was bleeding like a stuck pig, as you can imagine. Facial and head injuries, they bleed a lot. Tons of little capillaries up there. And loaded me up. And then Corey had picked up my iPhone, and as he's getting me situated in the car, he's simultaneously, I think at the same time, or right in there somewhere, dialing 911. He waits to make sure 911 answers it, and he hands the phone to Patti and says, "Just talk." Patti forgot that thing about obey without hesitation. I guess it typically wouldn't work both ways, but she, what are you doing? He said, "Mama, just talk. It's 911. And so she got on the phone. About that time, Patti looked at Corey and said, "Gate the gate." Because we've got a gate at the end of our driveway that's not locked, but it's got a little chain that latches it, And so, hey, Chell. My oldest daughter just walked in. Is Tomas here? Good.
Hey, girl.
And so,
Good to see you. You look so pretty.
Patti knew immediately Corey knew immediately what Patti meant by the gate. So he took off, man. And, like I said, he's got long legs and he's fast. So in no time at all, he had the gate standing wide open, and all we had to do was drive out. And Corey got my truck and followed us. So I'm focusing on my breathing. I don't know how much blood I've lost. And, I could tell I felt sort of like I was hyperventilating. I felt like I wasn't getting the oxygen I needed. So I was trying my best to control that.
Hey, boy.
Patty's
Hey, man.
Patty's talking to the dispatcher on 911.
The lady,
yeah. Yeah, because she kept saying, lady. Patty did,
Yeah, I was driving. I said, "Lady, I got to put this phone down. You're going to have to talk louder. I got to use both hands."
Well, what I had told, hey, buddy. what I had told her,
You guys say hey to everybody. You too.
say hey to everybody.
Talking
Hey.
about I live across the road.
I told Patti, I said what we needed to do. I said we're gonna get an ambulance on the way, and we'll just meet them wherever we can. So that's what Patti was communicating to the 911 lady. You wanna talk about your time on the 911 line?
How many more you find?
Well, I mean, it
How you
just,
been
you know, of course, I don't drive. I drive the speed limit. I'm one of those kind of people. But we didn't drive the speed limit Friday.
Let's just say
My son-in-law, which just came in, would be proud of me, my defensive driving skills, because he's from Bogota, Colombia, and they have to have very good defensive driving skills. He would have been proud of me that day. Tommy was too.
let's just say we may have driven multiples of the speed limit.
Yeah.
We may have needed to use a multiplier to get to the. But anyway,
But it
she
worked
did.
out good. But you know, was it you talking about what a weird thing where I ended up meeting them at a funeral home.
Yeah.
I met him at Brookhaven Funeral Home. You know, not because he needed to go to the funeral home, but because that was.
Yeah, I was the one that thought
Were we
about
there?
it. I was
Oh,
like,
it was you talking
yeah.
about
So isn't this ironic? You know, well, we had picked. You know, Patti and the lady had picked some spots along the way, but as we would get there, the ambulance hadn't made it that far, so we would pick another closer. You know. And as we were approaching the funeral home, Patti said, "What about the funeral home on Natchez?" She said, "Yes, they're almost there." And as we get to the driveway to turn in, we didn't see them. And then the lady said, "You should be seeing them topping the hill." And as those words came out of her mouth, we saw them
Yeah,
topping the hill.
I hadn't made the decision I was stopping because I did not
Yeah.
see lights and I wanted to go. I didn't want to have to wait. But I saw the lights and I turned in and
Yeah, so we pull up in there.
they took over and I started shaking.
Yeah, and I started taking off. I took off my belt. I took off my holster. I took off my wedding ring, and at that point recognized I had lost my LSU ring.
Yeah.
It remains lost. You know, I can't find it. That makes me sad because I love that ring. But you know what? I still have my finger, and so in the big picture, I hope we find it. But if we don't, so what? Because I could have lost a whole lot more, including my life. So they load me up in the ambulance. Almost as soon as they got a look at my face and saw the condition of my nose, and if you didn't hear the audio at the very beginning, we had a little audio problem. The right half of my nose basically was here. It was down here on. It was completely shattered.
And that's all I saw. He didn't think I saw anything. He was trying to protect me, but you know, when
Yeah,
he walked up,
I covered my face with a towel. I kept telling Patti, "Don't look, don't look."
and I go, I'm not looking.
I didn't want her to see it, you know. But so
and this is the bad side, and of course I was on this side driving, so I didn't see Corey. He would just tell his sister when she would ask, "It's bad, it's bad."
yeah,
Corey
I
wouldn't go into details, so I knew it was more than the nose. He's with Kayla.
he's with Kayla. He'll be back in a little bit.
But I'm here now. I got to go get
And at that point, I still thought my ear was gone. I didn't know that my ear was still there. So when they got a good look at my nose, they knew the work that was going to be necessary. I think the paramedics assumed I was going to have plastic surgery. And so they almost immediately notified dispatch to get a helicopter en route so that I could be airlifted to University Medical Center in Jackson. So I'm in the ambulance.
We had 10 minutes, babe.
I told them I was getting faint, and they gave me some oxygen. Yeah, I guess we got 10 minutes, so I guess I need to kind of hurry it up a little bit. So to make a long story short, I found out later that my blood pressure dropped in the helicopter down to 70/40. I know when it happened because I got faint at that time, you know, as well. And Marilyn, when I told them I was about to pass out, the lady reached up and grabbed the IV bag and squeezed it, and I could feel the more fluid. I could feel it going in. It felt good, but I could feel it going in, and almost immediately I felt better, you know. But
Marilyn's shaking her head. Yes,
Yeah.
she's a nurse, so
Yeah.
she knows about that.
she knows about that stuff. So, got in there. The nurses and stuff couldn't have been nicer. Well, they were all over me and checking for other injuries, you know, and they're finding these things on my arm and my chest. I'm like, I don't have a clue. I didn't know it got me there. And there was a period of time where I felt like I had been abandoned in there, and because it was a long, long time, and I was bleeding like a stuck pig. I mean, it was dripping, just dripping. Boom, boom, boom. There was an artery right in here, an arterial, an artery that was punctured, and that's where the blood was coming from. It took the doctor multiple attempts to cauterize it to make it stop, and then they stitched it. But I found out that my abandonment was purposeful. Patti found out and told me, so it made it all make sense. But they left me in there to bleed because they wanted to bleed. They wanted the blood to be flowing before they...
To clean it out.
Yeah, to clean it out and to make sure there was good blood flow out of all these wounds before they healed them up, so they stitched them up. So to make an already long story a little bit shorter, they opted not to do surgery. They opted to fix me up right there. And so, you know, at one point I asked the doctor, actually multiple times I asked him, I said, y'all got to give me a stitch count. Y'all got to understand there's bragging rights on the line here. You know,
they would come out and say, what were they saying, Chelsea? My daughters come in too. They come out and say, he's a trooper. He's back there talking. And
he's telling the story like nothing happened.
You come get on camera. They've never seen you. Come on, where they can see.
Come over and see Chelsea.
Y'all gotta come on, Guillermo.
Come on, Guillermo.
They've never seen you either. This is our daughter, Chelsea.
This is our oldest daughter, Chelsea. This is
Tomas's
Tomas's
mom. Come on, Guillermo.
This is so weird.
And this is her husband, Guillermo. So you don't have to stay, but just there you go.
This
Say hey to everybody.
This is Tomas's dad, Papa.
So to make a long story, y'all can stay or you can go sit back down. It don't matter to me. So basically, yeah, I'd ask them several times throughout the process, how many stitches? How many stitches? I need to know. I'm going for the record in our family because my oldest son Cameron is the current record holder. And suffice it to say, I have blown him out of the water because the doctors basically said there's no way to count.
Hundreds.
Yeah, he said, I can tell you this, you know, you know how fast we're doing these stitches. And that took place for approximately 6.5 hours. 6 to 6.5 hours of actively stitching my head and face. 3.5 to 4 of those hours, 2 doctors at one time constantly stitching my face.
Yes.
So it was multiple hundreds of stitches. And then they had to do the ditch pipe, had to put the culvert in my nose at the same time.
Hey, I always want to tell Guillermo, always Steve says, hello, Chelsea.
How's your helicopter ride to the hospital?
Huh?
How's your helicopter ride?
It was actually awesome, Tomas. All right, so we're back.
No, it's not what you drew.
My doggone internet crashed
I'll talk to you tomorrow about it.
again
I just need
during
to
the
see why
show.
we split it.
It's like it knows.
Okay.
So, you know, we're about out of time. I just want to tell you God is good. God is very kind to me.
That's right.
He's kind to my whole family. There were so many ways that this could have ended up with me dead or blind or further mutilated. And it didn't, you know, because God was so gracious to us. I'm thankful for my son. I'm thankful for all my kids. I'm thankful for Corey that day. I'm thankful for my wife. They kept cool heads under pressure. I've written some stuff about this on my Facebook page. On our Facebook page, I meant to say on my profile and on our Facebook page at AldermanFarms. So you can go read some about that on our Facebook page if you want to. And I wanted to talk about my Facebook experience over the last day or so. Not all been positive. Much of it has been positive. It's amazing how some people just feel the need to be character assassins, taking no consideration for the fact that a family just suffered the worst trauma that it's ever endured. But I'm going to tell you something. There's some great people out there. The outpouring of love from our community, Big Bear and others, has just been stunning and
kind.
overwhelming, and we can't thank you enough. The outpouring from strangers in Facebook land has just been sustaining, and it's been like a balm to the wounds of our heart, and we're very thankful for that. So I wish I'd have had time, doggone internet, to talk a little bit more about that.
Listen, I want to mention this right quick. I know a lot of you may have questions, and we really haven't been addressing your questions on the chat that much. I think he's answered some of them as he's talking. But, next week we don't want to have to spend a whole show on this. But if you have questions, bring them next week, and we'll be glad to answer them.
That's right. That's right. Please do that. Now, we want you to go over to Brad and Krista's and at the Big Family Homestead, because they're on next, followed by
now.
Like now. And we do this every week, sort of out of habit. So I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna say it again and Patti, let me say it because I'm gonna say something a little different.
Okay.
We just want to remind you that whether you eat or drink or fight a huge dog in your front yard, do whatever you do to the glory of God. And I can't believe I forgot to mention that there was a lot of praying going on while I was wrestling that dog.
And there's still a lot of prayer.
But I was talking to God the whole time and asking Him to intervene, and He did, because He's good and He's kind. And so we love you guys. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week.